Ever wonder what makes really creative people tick? Where do their ideas come from? What keeps them energized? What kinds of things get in their way? Is their life really as much fun as it looks from the outside? Hello, I'm your host, Lily Pierpont, and this is ArtStorming, a podcast about how new ideas come to life and become paintings, sculptures, plays, or poems, performances, or collections. Each episode, I'll chat with a guest from the arts community and explore how the most creative among us stare down a blank canvas or reach into the void and create something new. I met my next guest, Helene Rene Pfeffer, at a cocktail party. By that Sunday, I was already in her studio taping this conversation. Let's just say she made an impression. She's a petite woman with a bold style. Maybe it was the leopard print turban, jewels, and dramatic but tasteful makeup that piqued my interest. Not your typical bohemian Santa Fe look. She had a retro Hollywood glamour vibe, like a woman who has stories, who could tell of a Santa Fe of perhaps another era. And something told me that her artwork would not disappoint, but I didn't know quite what to expect. When I arrived at her studio, in the fading light, I was struck by two things: the enormity of her canvases, given how tiny she is, and the down-to-earth style with which she presented herself when not in party mode. The glamour gal of the days before was equally stunning in sweatpants, a simple baseball cap, and no makeup. After a few glitches with the equipment, we sat down to talk. We'd not had much of a chance to talk at the party, so this is us, in real time, getting to know each other. So excited to be here with Helene Rene Pfeffer, who I just got a chance to meet the day before yesterday,
Yes.
I think. And I'm already here in her studio. That's how fast things happen in Santa Fe. And so I'm delighted to be here. It might be a little echoey. We're going to play around with the volume a little bit, but we're just going to have a conversation. I told Rene that she didn't have to do anything to prepare, that we were just going to do this as if it was any old conversation.
Right.
So that's what we're doing.
Perfect.
And so I was so surprised to see these enormous paintings. You're petite in stature, to say the least, and these paintings are enormous.
Yes.
So the first burning question I have is do you use a ladder?
I used to, but now I started out with a ladder when I was painting in Soho, in New York, because the ceilings were very, very high. I was on the top floor. And then when I moved here, I had to paint on this floor because the studio that I had way out on the trail did not have a very high ceiling. So I started painting on the floor. And my last painting that I'll ever do again on the floor is this one that you're looking at.
Oh, wow.
On the floor, bent over. That's it. Never doing that again.
I understand. I mean, I have never painted on the floor. Once upon a time, I used to do architectural painting and I used to paint on ceilings.
Yes.
I will never do that again.
That's
I mean,
right.
that's, even with scaffolding, that's
that's crazy.
It's very uncomfortable. It's hard to be creative when you're in that much pain.
Yes. But my pain comes later. When I'm into the painting, I'm not thinking. I'm only thinking about my work.
Interesting.
So I didn't feel the pain until
the next day, or when you're no longer hitting your thumb with a hammer.
That's it. That's right.
Wow. So how long have you been painting?
All my life.
Where did life start?
In Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in Santa Fe now, and
Yes.
it sounded off tape. I did hear you say that you've lived. Well, you just mentioned New York, so you've made your way to Santa Fe. Tell me about that journey.
Well, I moved to New York to paint in Soho. I had a fabulous studio there. Again, on the very top floor. Again. And then I decided after 20 years of carrying supplies around on the trains, hammers and things that people were afraid of, I decided it was time to move here. I had been coming out here for the summers, teaching at the community college, meeting people, but mainly picking up students. So when I did finally move here, I had students, and I had a huge loft on my property, way out, past 67C. So
And how did you pick that location? I mean, that's, coming from New York City, which is like such a densely populated area.
I just wanted to get away and be quiet.
Kind of a Georgia, you did your Georgia O'Keeffe.
Yes, I did that. I won't do that again either.
Yeah.
So I was there for 10 years, way out, isolated, but got a lot of work done. And my students would come.
And did you have a gallery representation at that time?
At that time, I think I was with Helene Lapidus. Then she closed her gallery. And I went with Victoria Price. And then Victoria Price was in the rail yard. And she closed her gallery.
So were we in the 90s at this point?
Time passes so quickly. Now I don't know. But
yeah.
Anyway.
I'm just trying to get a sort of general idea of things.
Anyway, then I just, I never went with another gallery.
And
I was so disappointed after two had closed. Two really good galleries had closed, so.
Well, and the whole market was starting to change at that point. I don't even know, fixing it in time, but the whole universe really started to shift.
Yes.
And so do you represent yourself at this point?
At this point, but I'm very interested in going with the gallery again.
Yeah. Well, at this point.
I have the work, you can see. I have enough work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It's a strange dilemma for mid-career artists. I would call you mid-career, later career artists. And, it's with so many emerging artists and with so many different media and the technology for representing oneself. It's just like the whole game has changed so much.
It has.
I think the pendulum's swinging back a little bit, though, and people are starting to appreciate what galleries used to do. There was a period where they're like, we don't need galleries, but,
Oh, I never thought that I didn't need one. It just kind of happened with the time, and all of a sudden, here I am without a gallery and looking for one.
Right. And so when was that in the scheme of your moving closer into Santa Fe?
Well, I've been here 14 years.
14 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this is a good location. You're just far enough, it sort of feels like you're out in the middle of...
It does. I like the location.
Yeah, it's a good location. You can get in town easily.
And I have light in my studio.
Yes.
Which is so important for me, especially working on the white paintings.
Yes.
You must have light.
Yeah.
Or they won't come out right.
Right. Well, and one of the reasons that painters have been drawn to Santa Fe for eons is the light. So you might as well have the light.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So what brought you out to Santa Fe at the very beginning?
At the very beginning, first I took a little vacation here, fell in love with it, and started teaching every summer at the community college.
And that was your way of just getting yourself here?
Yes, establishing myself as an artist and as a teacher.
And between teaching and painting, do you have one that you prefer to do?
I prefer painting.
You prefer painting?
Yes.
But teaching is that access to, other people.
And, it is.
And are you stimulated by that?
Yes.
So your students feed you in a way?
Yes, they do.
And are you still teaching now?
I only accept a few students, and one at a time.
Oh, so do they come here?
They come here, or I go there, to their place, to their studio.
And what is it that they are most interested in gleaning from your tutelage?
Creativity, moving forward, and appreciating art. Now, if they can't paint, then we talk about how to appreciate art. When you look at a painting in a museum, what do you look for? Is it 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective? Because they don't know this.
So teaching them to see.
Yes, to see.
Interesting.
And what color did the artist put next to another color and why? And they love it.
I bet.
And it helps them.
So it's like sort of like art appreciation and motivation. So you're almost like a coach.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yes.
And so does it matter what medium they're working in, or do they come to you for no matter what they are?
No, and they like to come to me if they're stuck. And they don't have to have a lot of lessons, but they have to get unstuck to continue. So that's what I bring to the table.
Well, that's fascinating, because one of the reasons that I've been doing this podcast is to help people who don't even think of themselves particularly as creative, but they're at that juncture of their life where they're trying to decide what's next. And my theory is that it's a crisis of creativity in our lives that gets us to a place where we don't know what's next. Because if the valves are open, the creativity is coming through. That really doesn't exist as a question. But when it's living there as a question, what you do for your art students is what would be so valuable for all of us to have.
That's right. That's right. And thank you, Jane Fonda, for saying it keeps you young. Art lessons keep you young. And I was clapping when she said it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, there are a few sort of celebs who have turned to the arts. And I think that, in some ways it helps people who consider themselves non-artists, or in fairness to somebody like Jane Fonda or Sharon Stone, who's another artist who's recently, they were artists in a different expression, right? So they were, for sure.
Were.
I mean, to say that they weren't artists, but I think of George Bush, Baby Bush, who started painting. Right. He also, kind of a celebrity person who starts to turn to the arts. But it's one of those things that's so accessible. No matter what age you are, you can sort of start whenever you want.
So
right?
Easy. You can walk outside and paint. I mean, you can paint anywhere.
Yeah. Well, say a little bit more about that, because I think people who one of the things I say in my introduction is staring down a blank canvas is pretty intimidating. How do you get past a blank canvas?
It is. Well, that's one of the things I had to say about creativity. It's forgetting about perfection and accepting failure. I am no longer afraid of failure. And
do you even recognize what would failure even look like to you?
When I start a canvas, I have a relationship with the canvas, and I want to tear it to pieces.
I've heard that before.
Really? I'm thinking.
So you want it to go one way, and the canvas sort of wants it.
It has a mind of its own, or it's just not working out for you. And then I'll turn it toward the wall, or I'll put it in the garage. I'll put it
Punish
in
it.
any place. Yes.
It's grounded.
And then I'll come back to it, and I'll start working on it, because I know I can do it. After so many failures, I know I can fix it.
So you don't start from ground zero. You start again from wherever you left off.
Yes.
And you just re-engage.
Yes, I do. And then all of a sudden I fall in love with it.
Well, so who do you think is making the concession, you or the canvas?
Both of us.
Yeah.
And of course I have a little help from above.
I
really feel that way. When I finished any of these canvases, I said, thank you. I don't know how I did it. And I don't know how I did it. It just happens.
And so in the morning, on a painting day, you come into the studio, what mental preparation do you take yourself through to get yourself in the zone?
Oh, I'm in the zone. I live in the zone.
Live in the zone? I bet you do.
No, I do. I live in the zone. And I'm in the studio every day. And I don't have to work. I can sit here and put music on and look at my paintings and learn from them and see, does anything need to be changed? And it's at that point, after looking and looking, that I say to myself, it's finished. But it's a struggle. It's a struggle with every canvas.
So what I'm always, and I've had this very same conversation with a few artists here, but I'm wondering, so you come down, you've struggled with this piece, you and the painting agree that it's finished,
yes.
And then it sits somewhere for a little while, and then you turn it around, and you're a different person 3 months from now, 3 years from now, and you look at it again, is it still finished?
Most of them are, but I have had some that I never said were finished.
I
never said it. I said, it's not right. So I put them away. And I can put them away for 10 years.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's a long relationship.
I know.
And do you think about it in the interim?
No.
No, they're just like they're dead to you for the moment. Mm-hmm. And so when you're working on a new body of work, does an old body of, an incomplete body of work haunt you? Or are you able to just really put it aside?
I'll put it aside.
Yeah. I've never had a relationship that I sort of just put on hold. I mean, the only thing I can relate it to is people. And there are people that I haven't seen in a long time who I love dearly. And then you just sort of, you come back and you pick right up where you left off.
No time has passed.
Like no time has passed. So it's more like that kind of a thing. So you're not kind of in a cold war with the piece.
No, yeah, I just know that I'll be able to finish it someday. And I don't put a time limit on my work.
And is there anything in your studio now that has been, what's say the longest period you've gone? That one? The one that's now finished?
It's now finished.
Well, no wonder it's taking front and center.
I know.
What a victory.
I said, who can get out here the fastest to hang this thing for me?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's been away for a while. And it's totally different now. Now, sometimes they're kind of the same, but this is totally different.
So did it start out as one of these whiter canvases, or was it always a very colorful? Because what we're looking at, I mean, it's abstract. It
was colorful. It was colorful.
It was colorful.
I'm remembering it now.
Yeah. I mean, it sort of looks like confetti, in a way.
Yes.
I mean, that to try to make it look like something doesn't do it justice.
No. But there's a lot of movement in it. And it's about dance. It's about the leaves moving outside. It's about the wind blowing. It's about...
I can see all those things.
Yes, and a lot of my paintings are about the weather because I do. I'm influenced. I look out these huge windows.
Yeah. And they are huge windows, and you do have a spectacular, that view out there is fantastic.
It's spectacular.
And of course, Santa Fe gives us such great sky.
Yes.
It's one of those things.
Yes.
And so tell me about, for example, we're looking at a blue piece that's across the room.
Very quiet, very calming. That's my Venetian series.
Oh, I totally see it.
Venice years ago. And it's all about the sky and the water and the light. And that's what that series is all about. And I have many of those.
And did you live over there, or did you visit?
Just on vacation.
I think there's something about being on vacation someplace that makes you, for me anyway, I see textures and colors.
Yes.
I mean, because you only have a little bit to appreciate it. So I sort of absorb it much more
rapidly and
deeply and intensely. Yeah, I mean, the impressions that I have from my trips are, I mean, and I have the privilege of living in this fantastic, and I love it.
Yes.
But when I go somewhere else, it's just like,
I know.
I really feel
you have time.
Yeah, an urgency about it.
You have time. No one's calling you.
Right.
You have no interruptions.
Right.
So why not enjoy and see and feel and all of that?
Yeah. Do you take photographs when you're there, or do you just remember it in your mind?
I remember it in my mind. I do take photographs, but I remember it in my mind.
And does it sort of, does it live as a visceral experience, or more
you can't take a picture of that. You can't. I mean, if I take a picture, it's of a Rembrandt or something. But that... you have to imagine and squint and see just what you want to see and feel the water, feel the atmosphere. And that's what time allows you to do. You can't do that if you're in a rush.
Yeah.
If you're driving the freeway, you're not going to feel that or see it.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Well, I think, to your point about creativity, I was hearing I was reading Tilda Swinton had an article in the New York Times today, and she was talking about, the thing about the creative field is that it forces you to slow down. I mean, you can't engage with it unless you slow down.
No, in fact, I try not to get caught up in instant gratification, because sometimes you love your work and it looks good, and then you say to yourself, it's not great. It's not singing. It's not finished. But instant gratification does come.
Well, I would imagine especially comes faster when you're as accomplished as you are. And so I know. You can get color on a canvas and it can do its thing.
Yes,
but it's you can't cheat.
No,
right?
You can't, and you don't want to rush it.
Right.
No instant gratification. When that happens, you turn it to the wall. You stop painting. Pick it up again in a week and work.
Yeah, it's interesting. A friend of mine had always said that one of the things that distinguishes a piece of artwork for him is that he can see the struggle in it. And not that it has to be an angsty or disagreeable piece, but he has to see that the artist has wrestled with it in some way. Otherwise, it can be banal.
Right.
In a way.
It's that struggle that's exciting.
Yeah.
To get you on a high. And then you want to do more.
Yeah, it's sort of a kind of problem solving, would you say?
Yes, it is. It's an accomplishment. And it takes time and devotion and love and patience. Patience, which I really don't have. But I've learned through my paintings that if I'm going to call on the patient card, it has to be with my paintings. It has to be.
So cultivating patience is another really wonderful concept. And so it sounds like they've taught you.
Yes.
How to be patient.
Yes. With my work. I didn't say anything else. I'm not a patient person.
So
I have to be careful not to rush the process.
Right. And so you're working in oil, right?
I work in everything.
In everything.
A lot of collage.
Well, sometimes the medium determines patience. I mean...
Yes, on these, I have to stop working to let the first layer dry.
Yeah.
Then the second layer has to dry. That's where the patience comes in. Otherwise, you get mud.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. And with encaustic, is that true also?
No, encaustic is fast.
It's faster.
I've done encaustic, but I'm no longer doing it. It's so bad for your lungs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and oil is better? Not really.
Oh, it's better, but it's not great, but it's better.
Yeah, yeah.
But I have to do it.
Well, and how did you decide what medium? I mean, you say you work in multiple media as well as, collage, mm-hmm. But how did you happen on what medium to use? Because I think that's another really confusing thing for, I call us civilians, but the non-artists mm-hmm. among us who, it's very intimidating to buy all the equipment that one needs. First of all, it's maybe painting and drawing are one of the most accessible, art forms just because you at least can buy canvas, a few brushes, and some paint, as opposed to sculpture, something that's much bigger.
And messier. And you need, You need
space, you need materials, you need actually some skills beyond just picking up a brush. But how did you happen on the combination of media that you use now?
Well, I do both. This one is acrylic. You'd never know it.
Oh, no.
With the new inventions in acrylic, you can make acrylic look like oil. In fact, a real problem of mine is I say I'll never forget. I can tell the difference between acrylic and oil, and I'll go back to a painting years later, 10 years later, and I can't tell the difference.
Oh.
Because I worked so hard at making acrylic look like oil.
And do you use gel mediums to create more translucency? Yeah.
Yes, and then when I can't change one thing on it at a time because you have to have heavy over lean. You can't put acrylic over oil because oil breathes forever. It never really dries. So you've got if it's an oil painting, it's fine. But if I can't change something, a part of it, if it's acrylic, because it just doesn't work.
Yeah. So how long? So
I have
you've
to
had
go
to
over the
learn
whole
how
thing.
to. Right. You've had
Then
to
I
learn
have to
how
go
to.
over the whole canvas.
Right.
And if I put acrylic over oil, accidentally, it will crack.
Is that ever an intended effect, or?
Oh no, I don't know. It'll crack in a bad way because the oil is breathing and moving, and acrylic is plastic, and they slam up, and then they can't. The oil cracks the acrylic.
Yeah.
So I have to be very careful. So if I think it's acrylic, I will change it with oil and go over the whole canvas.
So do you ever label on the back
Well,
what
I'm
the
going
media?
to start because obviously I should have done that a long time ago. It's a
Well, it
very
never would have occurred to me to do that because, I mean, like in the moment, you think you'll remember what you did
well,
forever.
of course I would. Yes, of course. But then things happen, and you've got 100 paintings,
Yeah.
and you cannot remember,
Yeah.
especially if you've done it the right way, and the acrylic looks like oil.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially with all these newfangled media, as you say, it gets it more and more confusing.
Yes.
So how do you decide what scale? I mean, these pieces that you work on, I mean, there are a few examples of some smaller pieces, but for the most part, you're working in pretty large scale.
I love large.
How would you instruct a beginner to have the courage to take on a canvas the size that you take on as a routine?
Well, I just tell them to fail.
Be willing to fail.
Yeah. I just say fail. You want a big canvas? You want to do a big canvas? I don't think you're ready for a big canvas, but today you say you have to do a big canvas. Then fail. Get ready to fail and learn from your mistakes, just like life. I mean, my very best teachers have been failure and loss. Those are my teachers.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty profound right there.
Yeah.
And I think the willingness to do that, I think that may be the number one thing that interferes with people getting started. Because that's, to be able to accept those teachers and muses is pretty advanced human being stuff.
It is. It's just like life. You're never going to go anyplace unless you're willing to fail.
Well, I mean, willing to fail at a level of, I don't know, you're doing your life, you can't help it, you have to live, you do your life and you fail. But to deliberately take on a project where failure, I don't know, maybe 50% outcome, especially if you're a beginning painter. I mean, to me, I look at a canvas the size of the one behind you, and that's about 6 by 6 or something about like that. And, I think, I don't know that I have the inner audacity to even, to fail this big, and I'm looking at about 6 inches by 6 inches. But, I think in a weird way, it's easier to fail 6 inches because you're concentrating. There's so much focus on that small canvas. At least when you're going 6 feet by 6 feet, there's sort of more space to, play around or whatever. I have heard that, that there was a workshop I heard, years ago, a woman who started people painting, and she started people out with 10 foot by 10 foot canvases just so that they could have the experience of physically moving their bodies. It was much more gestural, just to break through this idea that they had to render something.
Yes.
And I think one of the beauties of abstract, and that's such a dance, I think of it as dancing across the canvas, that, getting your whole body involved is a different experience.
Oh, it is. Oh, yes. Yes.
But how did you ever render more realistic? I mean, was that ever your...
Impressionistic.
Impressionistic,
yes, impressionistic. I like to be free.
Yeah, okay.
And so with a paintbrush and strokes and doing it my way, seeing what I see, not what the camera sees, is very important to me.
Well, so growing up as a young girl, do you remember your first painting?
No, I don't.
Because it was so much a part of your whole life, or?
Well, I was raised in Texas, and in Texas, you're just raised to get married.
Well, you're the second Texan I've interviewed that said that.
Well, in my poetry, I express my life. I was raised to smile, walk down the aisle, taught to lose, and act amused. Walk behind, like those who bind their feet to be like Princess she. Told to be ladies, stay home and have babies. Warned not to be reactive, and asked to try to look attractive. That's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
And that's not anything against my parents. Those were Texas rules, and you obeyed them.
Well, they were rules of the time.
At that time, yes.
And I'm probably at the very tail end of the generation that got the same manual, because those were the rules that I was raised with as well. And that was in New York City. So, it was kind of...
I thought that was only in the South.
Oh, no, ma'am.
Oh,
no, ma'am. The only difference between the North and the South is that I was not trained to say no, ma'am. I was just taught to say no.
And smile.
And smile, of course.
Oh, my God. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I went to school in the South, and the first time I heard my peers saying yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, I thought it was so strange, because that was something that it was just different culture where I grew up. Only people who said yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am were people that worked for you. So yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am was not part of our culture. But I understand that it is.
Yes.
But, it's so interesting how those different cultural things, and interesting too, because I've spent a fair amount of time in Europe, and there's a politesse that exists there, and a hierarchy for sure.
Oh, yes.
But somehow, I've discussed this with other women friends of mine, the women, even though they were raised to be a certain way, they didn't seem to be stripped of quite as much authority. They seem to still have a kind of authority over there. I'm making huge, broad generalizations.
They do, and in
but
Texas also.
Yeah.
Still.
And do you still have family in Texas?
Oh, yes. I escaped.
You escaped.
I did.
And what was your first big escape?
New York.
So that's when you went to the village?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty big escape.
Yeah. Yes. And I really don't enjoy going back.
To the city or to Texas?
To Texas. I really don't enjoy it. I never did. I never belonged there. I was always an outsider.
Well, it's funny how Texas has produced some of the most creative human beings.
It's true.
And they all seem to, leave Texas. And I don't want to diss Texas, but it's phenomenal how many people come from that part of the world.
Yes.
And then end up in places like New York or LA
that's right. Well, they want
centers.
you to be in a box. And I just couldn't do it.
And so, do you mind me asking, do you have kids?
Oh, yes, I have family. I have a wonderful family. Yeah.
Well, and are they anywhere nearby, or you're just sort of living in...
They're in California. They're in Texas. They're Houston, Austin, Texas. They're all...
So some of your family is still in Texas?
Yes.
Good.
Yes. Now, the family loves to come here. They love Santa Fe.
Well, one of the things that I've been talking to my guests about is this idea that Santa Fe is more than just a geographic location. It's sort of a state of mind.
Yes, it's mental.
And so say a little bit more about what Santa Fe state of mind means to you.
Well, calm. Zen. Time to look outside, time to appreciate the leaves turning, time. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's very...
peace. I feel very peaceful here, especially after living in New York.
Yeah.
Because of the traffic, of the trains going back and forth. Time just to enjoy life.
Yeah.
And paint.
Yeah. And are you pretty social here? I mean, I met you at a party, so
yes.
I imagine you are.
I'm a party animal.
And are you friendly with mostly artists, or do you have friends from all walks of life?
All walks of life, but they're all so accomplished.
That's the other really cool thing about Santa Fe,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I mean, everybody has an interesting story.
I never knew this growing up in Texas, having female friends who were accomplished. And here, everyone is accomplished.
It really is something.
Even if they owned a business, even if they're running a business here, they're accomplished women. And it's a different mindset. That's
the other thing I'd love about it too. would you say that it's the age range that one finds themselves interacting with? It's unlike any other place I've lived, where other places you kind of tend to hang around with people who are in your same age or your same, work.
Oh yes, it's those
place
rules.
Or something like that.
It's those rules. There are no rules here.
Well, I guess there's no rules, but there's something about the openness and willingness to just cross over those boundaries.
Right. There are no age boundaries.
No age boundaries.
I mean, I have older friends. I have younger friends. I just have friends, and we don't think about age.
Yeah.
It's not a question of age. It's a question of, are you an interesting person?
Exactly. Well, and there's so many interesting things to do here. And so when you want to do something, meet a new friend, it's so easy to find one of 1,000 things going on any given day here, including walking up in the mountains. I mean, it doesn't have to be a strenuous activity.
Oh, no, I have a walking group.
Oh, do you? Are you part of that walking group?
I'm part of it.
Ah, okay.
Now, I kind of... I don't really walk when it's freezing. If it's 28 in the morning, I'm not going to walk.
Right.
Even 32 and windy, I'm not going to walk.
Yeah, but that's very few and far between here. I mean, we have so much beautiful.
Summer, we walk at 7 a.m. And I get in the car and go meet them.
Oh, that's just
great. And we walk for an hour. It's wonderful.
I love it because, here, lots of places have book clubs, but I know a number of people here who have walking clubs.
Yes.
And it's a great, sort of unstructured way to just kind of connect with people.
Meet and greet, that's it. And walk, exercise.
Yeah. And look at take in the beautiful landscape.
Yes.
And so do you go to other parts of New Mexico to find inspiration, or do you mostly when you're paint in your studio?
Right here out my window.
Yeah.
In the winter, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I bet with the snow.
In the summer, my little crabapple boutique trees bloom, and I paint those flowers the way I see them. That's what the ones behind the works on paper behind those 2 large canvases. I'll show you when we stop talking.
Your work is there's a continuity to your work.
Yes.
And also, I can see the very discrete, different projects, or what would you call them, when you start on a new
series.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when a new series kind of starts to come to you, how does that occur for you? Do you just wake up one morning and it's there?
It just happens right here on the canvas. I don't know what's going to happen. And then it happens, and then that starts the series. And the series can last anywhere from a year to 5 years to 10 years, and sometimes I go back and do an old series in a new way.
Oh. Yeah. Well, that's got to be really interesting, because you're bringing a whole new body of perceptions and wisdom.
Yes. And then sometime I combine. Like most of those canvases over there that are stacked are combinations. They've got the branches, they've got the leaves, they've got a little of everything in them.
Yeah, so say more about, we were talking a little bit off mic, but say more again about the installation piece that's at the museum here.
Oh, it was at the museum. Well, Sussman came from the Whitney and chose 4 artists, and I was one of them. I was thrilled. I told them I had to have my own wall, and the wall had to be black. And there had to be fans, because I had 3 by 3 inch pieces of paper with pins and I put the whole thing on the wall. And they were flapping like this. I've got to get you the video that I had made.
I bet it's beautiful.
It was. I had to take it down.
That must have taken a long time too. But
oh yes, all those pins, thousands of pins.
Oh my goodness.
Holding it together.
Well, what did you do with that piece?
Well,
after it was dismantled,
I made
you made some of these smaller
pieces,
ones.
yes, and framed them. But you don't get the movement.
Right.
Of the branches. Oh, it was, I've got to get you that video. I will.
Thank you. I would love to see it.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to see it. So that was almost more like sculpture in a way, since it's kinetic.
Yes, yes, in a way.
Have you ever been curious to try other media?
Not really. I'm so happy with my paint.
And poetry, you said, too,
as
yes,
well. And my poetry.
And are you writing actively?
Well, I wrote, and then I stopped. I think I got all my anger out with those poems. It was like seeing a psychiatrist, a really good one, and I got rid of all my anger. And then I just couldn't do it.
Interesting.
My muse left me, but my body felt better because it was a release.
Well, that's what, we were, I think, again, talking off mic about Elizabeth Gilbert and the book that she wrote called Big Magic. And she says, it's often considered that creativity unexpressed can be toxic. So thank goodness you have this other outlet, which doesn't need to come in words. It comes more, would you say it comes more in emotions, or does it come in colors? Does it come in, do you hear it? How does... I
feel it. I just feel it.
Feel it.
I just feel it.
And so do you
it's like the poetry. I felt it, and it would come to me, and I'd wake up in the middle of a night with an entire poem, and I'd have to write it down real fast.
Wow.
Or it would come at a dinner party, and I'd have to excuse myself from the table because I wasn't going to lose the poem.
Right.
And because it came all in one, I had to do it.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me. I mean, I've had a thread, a line come to me that I have to write down, but never a complete.
No, poems this long.
Yeah, well, and musicians do it too. The entire compositions,
the whole thing.
It's just phenomenal to me. I find it absolutely. I've been going to Chatter on Saturday mornings.
I don't go on Saturday morning. I was just there for the poetry readings.
Oh yeah, well, so I've just started recently, discovered it, and it's so wonderful to have that live music every Saturday morning.
Yes.
And some of the composers are new to me. I mean, of course, some of them are chamber music poets that musicians that we all know, but some of these contemporary artists, or even Mozart or Beethoven, whatever, the idea that this entire piece of music got downloaded to them, and that they can hear on multiple instruments simultaneously. To me, I can't wrap my brain around that.
Oh no, I can't either. Now that's incredible.
But you do the same thing with layers of paint.
I understand it, but I'm still in their field. I can't understand the whole concerto. I can't understand it, how they can do it. And
with some of them, it's one thing with a lot of the very classical music, and this may be because I'm a novice when it comes to listening to music, but at least with Beethoven, and you understand something's in thirds or it's in fifths or it's whatever. There's a certain kind of harmonic.
Yes, but not the new music.
But in the new music, I mean, it's like, how do you know that that's not the note? I mean, with an abstract, and it made me understand that people who look at abstract art for the first time, who are used to looking at something representational, I can understand now from listening to this contemporary music that they can say, well, how do you know that black mark is supposed to be there and not there? And how do you know that that's supposed to be blue and that's supposed to be peach? And how do you know?
You just know. You just know now. Speaking of those black marks, I did change a couple, and then someone came over and said, "Oh, it's finished." I said, "No, that little section right there has to be changed." They said, "You're not going to touch it," and I said, "I certainly am. It needs to be changed."
And you just know that.
And you just know, just like they know, even the abstract music, they know because it's inside of them.
Right. And even this sort of what sounds to me somewhat cacophonous and discordant.
Yes, no, it
it's like there's so many different possibilities of discordant.
Yes.
How do you know that's the one you want to express?
You just know. Because you're creating it.
I suppose it's your voice, it's your whatever.
Right.
But to me, going back to this idea of being maybe part of the way I was socialized, you were socialized, but I'm always so admiring of people who were socialized maybe the same way that I was, but still have enough of a sense of self that they have the audacity to say, no, I want this mark here and only here. I mean, I'm so accustomed to just sort of being like, whatever, that I certainly have boundaries and lines that I won't cross, but they have more to do with my values or this or that. But if somebody says, no, wear this shade of lipstick, or, I don't want to reduce myself to just that's not my only expression, but, it's like, I just don't know that I hold that firmly to anything. And that's what I really consider the difference between an artist such as yourself and a civilian like me, even though I have creative outlets and I consider myself a creative person, but that differentiation between, it's like, no, it goes like this and it's not right unless it's like this.
That's right.
I have so much appreciation for that.
Well, I do that in my art and my poetry, but I don't always do it in life. But I'm beginning to.
We'll say more about that. So how is it that somebody can do it? How do you compartmentalize that?
I just do, because my art is my art. And
so there's a boundary around that you're very clear about. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, like what kind of an example, because the way you present yourself, you're a beautiful, very well put together woman. So that seems somewhat curated to me, but not affected, but just you're clear about who you are.
Yes, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It is fun.
Yes.
It is fun.
Yes.
But you've given yourself, that's another area where you must give yourself permission.
Oh, I do. And people sometimes laugh at
at your turban.
Yes,
I loved your turban.
And the things I'll put on, and how can you wear that? Well, not here. Nobody says a word. They love it. In Texas, yes, they would say, you can't go out like that.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
So
self-expression is one of those, things that people probably play with a little bit more here than they do in other places.
Yes,
but there's still kind of I don't know, one can fall into, it's a very casual place. Mm-hmm. And so if you're in a mood to be really dressy, of course, nobody's going to say anything to you. But getting to that place where you even know that you want to be dressed, I don't know. I just, I have a tendency to kind of, go with the flow so much that it's hard for me to.
Oh, no, never know what I'm going to show up in. Never.
So do you collect clothing and fashion?
Yes. I have things that, I guess I have some things that I wore when I was 20.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. Yeah. I just can't part with them.
Well,
vintage.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well, of course it's fun, but it's only fun if you know how to do it and if you feel like you can pull it off.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's very stressful.
Yes.
I mean,
it is if you have to do it. If you have to go to a party where they say dress like this, and then it is stressful for a lot of people. If they say roaring 20s, well, they don't know how to pull that off, and so it's stressful for them.
Yeah, but I have a feeling if they said roaring 20s, you'd be all over that.
Oh yeah. used to have a long cigarette holder, black, with little rhinestones in it.
I can totally picture it. I can totally figure. What's the most
little hats?
What's the most outrageous outfit you think you've ever pulled off?
Oh, once I went to a paper dress party, and I cut out of paper, and I covered it with green stamps. Do you remember those green stamps?
Yes.
I covered it all. It was.
You had enough green stamps to do that. That's pretty impressive. That's like a toaster. That's at least a toaster. I wonder what happened to paper dresses. They were very chic back in the 60s. Yeah, a little A-line.
Just cut it out like that and pasted all those stamps all over. It was great.
Oh God! I think they had a paper dress exhibit in New York just in the last 3 or 4 years. In that, what's that building near Columbus Circle? But they had a paper dress exhibit. Yeah. You've been here in Santa Fe long enough. I'm sure you have some great Santa Fe stories too.
Oh yes, I have so many. My friend Eleanor would give parties like she would have a theme, or you would be asked to come as someone. They were incredible parties and always fun.
Yeah.
And she was a fabulous, fabulous woman who set up First Serve of New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to help the children. And she had 99% of those children came from nothing, could not look you in the eye, did not know how to say hello, were failing in school, and 99% graduated from her care and love and became doctors and lawyers and whatever. They all, 99%.
That's amazing. And it's one of the other remarkable things about Santa Fe is that so many people do come here having completed whatever their career was and start some kind of passion project, we'll call it, a nonprofit organization or something.
It was passion.
And there are so many successful passion projects here.
Yes, this one was outstanding, just outstanding.
And so the parties that she gave were fundraisers for this project.
Yes. And they were fabulous. They were just fabulous.
Yeah.
And fun, and everybody enjoyed it. And we all loved her. And unfortunately, she passed away 2 years ago. So,
do you feel like you, since you know people of all ages, are there some young people coming through the ranks that are friends of yours that are going to take the place of those sort of grand dames of
I hope so.
Projects?
Yes. Now she has, First Serve is still running full speed ahead. And there are people who are helping with the projects.
And just as a mecca for artists and creativity, this is a hotbed for that. There are just so many different projects that one can get a little bit overwhelmed with all the places one can put one's attention.
Yes. I put my attention with her project.
And other artists that you know, I mean, have you done any collaborative projects with some of the artists that you know?
No, I like to work alone. I know what I want to do. I'm just not good at compromising.
Well, yeah, the kinds of collaborations that I've seen that are so interesting here are ones that take a completed work, a work in painting, and then combine it with music or something, so that it's that kind of a collaboration. So you're not actually working on the same piece, but an integrated expression.
Yeah, I like
or
that.
Dance.
I would like that. Yes, working with music, I would love that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's maybe the next frontier for Santa Fe. I mean, there's so many galleries, and it's great to go meander down Canyon Road, but I think that the combining the dance arts and the music arts, is a really interesting way to kind of get
I think so.
people with competing interests together.
I misunderstood you. I thought you meant working on the same.
Well, collaboration can look like a lot of different things. I do know there's one artist couple that I talked to on the show. Alexandra Aldrich and Rick Stevens, and they did a collaboration where they were actually working on the same pieces. So they combined them, and they did a show in England for their London gallery. And I think they enjoy doing that, but they're both so very, very different. And I think they kind of prefer being in their little siloed places. But it was an interesting.
But that's interesting. Yeah, that I could do. Yes.
So many of the artists that I know who are partnered artists, are both in the same medium. I don't know that many people who are, an opera singer and a writer or this and that, but I'm sure they exist here. I just haven't found them all.
They do.
I love what you said about creativity.
Oh, good. I really wanted to get that in.
So how does somebody who wants to learn from you find you?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
And do you have a vetting process?
No, I usually know them. Either they heard of me through the community college years ago, or they've seen a painting of mine in someone's home, and then they'll come over and they'll look at the paintings, and then they'll say, "Oh, I really like to paint. I'm very interested in learning." And I used to run workshops when I lived way out and had the huge studio on the property. But I do less and less of that. Sometimes I have paint-ins. I have 6 people. Clear everything in the room, and we'll have a paint-in, or we'll do it on the patio in the summer, which is easier. But I don't know, I really like one-on-one because I get to know the person.
Sure. I would think that would be good for them too. It's hard to focus on what you're doing when there's so many other interesting things going on around you.
I know, but I love one-on-one.
Well, I will make sure that on the episode notes that we have access to information about you should somebody want to seek you out.
Thank you.
For a one-on-one.
Thank you.
And I think, considering that we had such technical difficulty at the beginning of this, I think we did okay.
We certainly did. You did it.
Well,
you got that thing to work.
My tech will be able to salvage this because it doesn't look like the recording has been very high. But anyway, thank you so much, Helene.
Thank you.
And I will be seeing you around.
Oh, yes.
For sure. This is the beginning of a long friendship, I hope.
So, yes.
I think so, too.
Why not? Interesting friends make life interesting.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Please like and follow us on artstorming.org, where you'll find a list of our shows, a transcript of this episode with links to the guest page, as well as our other projects. ArtStorming is brought to you and supported by ArtBridge and listeners like you. Look for us on your favorite podcast platforms.